Hello, I have a lot of announcements about the Stop Killing Games campaign. I'll try and run through it. This is gonna have this as two separate videos. Okay, I guess the first thing is I need to walk back a little bit what I said last time, where I thought that if we hadn't cleared a certain threshold in the signatures, it was done. I want to push it forward maybe just one more month since there's more developments before I'm ready to call off. However, I'm going to go over everything that's been going on. The first thing, I'm remember a few months back I was talking about like we had a big promotion coming that ended up not following through. Well, now it looks like I can give details about that. What was going on there was we were in talks with GOG for a long time. Like I remember being in a meeting or two back in August, myself and several of the European, the European Citizens Initiative organizers, including the spokesperson, and they ended up handling the meetings afterwards because in the first meeting, the idea was that they were interested in this, but they wanted to know more about it. So we told them everything, and there was some back and forth. And the rest I heard from the organizers themselves because they were handling the negotiations after that. Well, GOG became more and more interested in it. In October, they told us that they were going to mention this in their newsletter, like the European Citizens Initiative. And my understanding is that reaches millions of people. So that even though most of them, a whole lot of them might not have been in the EU, that probably would have boosted our numbers, within closing distance of the threshold. So we were all real excited once we heard about that because we thought like, oh, good, the cavalry's coming on this. But they didn't have an exact date yet, but they told us they were going to do that, maybe with some other promotions, that sort of thing. Some time passed, and I think either November or December that they said they were going to have the newsletter sometime in January. Like you might be able to check my video chats, like when I still, wasn't giving an official announcement yet, but we got a confirmation it's going to be in the newsletter. Well, December passed, and the contacts that they were with got laid off. And then a new person came in. Well, no, I'm a little confused in the chronology because I wasn't there for the later meetings, but new one came in, and there was some delay, but yeah, it still seemed like it was going to go on with January. And then a new person came in, and then they said like, well, maybe we could have you in the newsletter, but we want to see like how much publicity we can get on our end from GOG for all this promotion. So we went from this is happening, we just don't know when, to, well, now let's talk about it. Maybe we can make this happen. So we tried to put together a media portfolio for them. I said I was willing to, mention them on pretty much any interview they wanted and try to work them in more if that's what it would take to get the Citizens Initiative mentioned. And, we try to show like how many views I get, that sort of thing. But we also mentioned that, the timing, since they kind of sprung this on us, the timing wasn't as good as earlier back when we had more momentum rolling on it. There was some delay on that, like some more back and forth, like, oh, we'll get back to you. Then finally in March, I think late March, we got a response saying, well, no, we can't put you on the newsletter because that's for commercial interest only. So we kind of got strung along for half a year on this. I don't know why. I mean, maybe it was a miscommunication, like internally, or maybe they committed to it, but then the people who did that didn't work there anymore, and the company decided to change direction. So that all got thrown out the window. I want to let people know because I never would have announced that we have a big promotion coming if I hadn't got a confirmation about that. So that kind of put me in a real awkward scenario, especially when I had to kind of hold off talking about it. I mean, for the record, GOG does support the initiative. They made a promotional video on it, which I'll have in the description. But that would literally been hundreds of times less exposure than what the newsletter would have been, if it's as they say, because that many people, that probably could have ended this entire thing. I mean, in our favor. Like, I think that could have saved the practice. So I don't know what's going on other than that's kind of dead and buried now. And again, if I got any details, if anybody at GOG is watching or hears about this, if I got any details wrong, I'm happy to correct it. This has mostly been hearsay on my end, but I wanted to let people. So that was kind of the first thing that kind of got our hopes up in the thing. Oh, we can pass the threshold. Then it just kind of collapsed. It honestly kind of reminded me when I was working at Machinima. I mean, although that in that case, I think there was malice involved. I don't think that for GOG, where I was put in a position where they said I wouldn't be able to make new videos unless I agreed to a new contract. So I said, okay, well, what's in the new contract? It's like, oh, well, we'll get back to you on that. And it was just month after month after month and no details. And so it kind of felt like that, where it's just like, yeah, we're going to do this month. Okay, no, we're not going to do this. Or maybe we're going to do this month. Okay, no, we're not. We were never going to do this. What are you talking about? So, so that was that big promotion I kept alluding to earlier. Now, since then, around that time, yeah, like a month or two back, I said there might be another promotion coming. Now I can talk about that. The new promotion, I never would have predicted this one, was I got contacted by an ad agency that was representing Heineken, of all companies, the beer maker. And what it is they're doing this big publicity push on gamer bars, where they recognize that there's like a lot of like online communities involved with certain games. And when games get shut down, that creates a problem, because then if there's a community around that where, let's say they meet at a bar to play it or discuss it, then that kind of kills the community. And they were like, had interest in hosting games that have been shut down, that sort of thing. And they felt like the European Citizens Initiative fit in almost perfectly with what they were doing and were willing to promote it for us for free. And so, yeah, we jumped at that opportunity. The spokesperson and myself both made promotional material for them upon their request. They put the ad agency put, I forget, I think they said they put in 30 days of work on it. They were putting together videos, this promotional material. It was all ready to go. And then that got postponed. The problem is that got postponed until next year, after the Citizens Initiative ends. They're still all for this. Like, I checked the ad agency representative. They support the initiative because they don't like seeing games destroyed either. In their case, it's because of their marketing interests. So, but I only found that out just a couple days ago that it got canceled. And I guess if we want to go with this with a real roundabout way, this would be a real Hail Mary thing. Like, the initiative ends in July, but this thing that they were talking about, like a gamer lounge marketing promotion, it sounded huge. It was going to be a global thing. They said they were going to get in all these gaming magazines talking about it, and the Citizens Initiative was going to ride along with that, all of it. So, man, that could have changed the entire landscape of this. So maybe we might do like kind of like a really quiet relaunch next year, because I don't think there's any way we can organically get the same sort of numbers without like a lot of promotion behind it. But if they were still willing to go with it next year, maybe we could do that. But in that case, Heineken would have to carry almost all the weight on it. But I'm not holding my breath on that. But yeah, that was a bummer. But yeah, we put in time on that. Yeah, if anything, I'm so used to disappointment on this that I think I took it better than the ad agency. The representative of the ad agency, he seemed kind of upset about this, because they put in time and money on this only to have the whole thing postponed by a year. So yeah, that's the other big promotion, potentially big promotion. I really wasn't sure what to expect for how. I could see that going either way. Like, I could see that being enormous, or I could see it just maybe getting a few tens of thousands of views. Of signatures. So, also, I guess since last month or month before, well, actually no, since December of last year, but I had an update a couple months ago. I've been in talks with the BEUC, the European Consumer Organization, about they're showing some interest in the initiative also, and just the concept. Well, actually, not just the initiative, but just the concept of game ownership. They're trying to tie in a few issues like predatory monetization, like targeting of children for like stuff that's kind of like on the border of gambling. And they have interest in, tying our issue in with others, which I'm totally fine with piggybacking onto other initiatives for, being not to stop games from being destroyed. And we had talks in December. They wanted to meet up again in March. We had a talk in March, and they might be able to be kind of a backdoor approach towards getting a law proposed within the EU Commission this way. However, they're going to be iffier, and they're also probably going to be a lot longer. Like years for things to implement. But I've said sure. And they said that the current people running the EU Commission, or at least the contacts they have, are really focused on data backing things up. So what we did with volunteers from the Discord, we kind of updated that list I had in the Games as a Services fraud and kind of rearranged it a bit. I'll have a link for that later too. I think we put in over 700 titles to show that like how often games get destroyed and which titles are at risk, when the publisher itself does something to bring it back, when the fans do, and that sort of thing. I don't have the stats off the top of my head, but I remember one statistic is, I may make a short video on this also, because the person who did a lot of legwork and helping to research all of this was interested in turning this into like a wiki or something later, and wouldn't mind some help on. But yeah, for the stats, I think what we found is for online only games that get shut down, about 75% of them get shut down permanently. And I think it's like maybe 3% is from the publishers themselves saving it, and like the other 22% or whatever the number is from the community kind of saving it, through reverse engineering server emulators and that sort of thing. So that is a possibility, but that's going to take a long time if it does happen. But some glimmer of hope on that. There's not much on that we can influence past this point, though. But I'll have the data for that. The data that we used for that, and maybe it can get updated and that can help. But probably the data we've collected is decent enough. Yeah, again, I think we had over 700 games on the list, though about half of them were at-risk games, so they haven't been shut down yet. So with those two big promotions kind of sunk, there is one, after talks with some other people, there is one other possibility. I would say we have no chance at this point to passing the threshold, but there is one other angle we're pursuing now that we've just started to. Again, we did research last time. It looks like we can't really buy ads on YouTube or Twitch, because these would be considered of a political nature, because we're pushing for, we're not backing any political party or politician, but we are pushing for the law to get changed. However, it looks like it's okay for us to have sponsored messages on YouTuber channels specifically. So in other words, you contact the person of that channel, and then they would have a message within their video. It looks like that's okay as long as they disclose that this is like a paid promotion. And we have one or two kind of, I'm calling them mysterious benefactors of people willing to fund, ads or sponsorships of this way. They don't have enormous pockets, but they deeper than mine for sure. So what we're pursuing right now is possibly buying sponsorships, sponsored messages, maybe like a 15 to 30 second message in like a normal video on gaming channels or channels where the audience would care about gaming that are non-English speaking, so these would be French, German, or Italian channels like that, because I figure I'll take any promotion I can on Stop Killing Games, but if we're actually paying for it, I want it to be extremely targeted. And so, if it's in English, that's automatically going to throw out a lot of people who are, the majority of people watching it are almost certainly not going to be eligible to sign it. Like, based on my own stats, about 15% of my viewers come from the EU. So that'll be 6 times less as effective if the numbers hold elsewhere for having one in English. But if it was something like in Polish or Italian, well, then almost everyone watching is going to be eligible to sign. So those could be much more valuable. I do need some help on this, though, specifically in a few areas. One is with people who are bilingual and can maybe act as liaisons to kind of contact, non-English gaming channels. And I say non-English, I mean non-English languages, that are dominant in the EU. So not Japanese, unfortunately, because that wouldn't get us where we need to be. But, and again, while there's no qualitative difference between one over the other, Spanish and Portuguese might be not as good picks, just because the vast majority of speakers of Spanish and Portuguese are not in Spain or Portugal. So I think like the population of Brazil compared to Portugal is like 20 to 1 or over 20 to 1. So it would be a similar. We can still consider them, but those would be less desirable than ones where the speakers are dominantly in EU countries. But yeah, so we need help with like bilingual people, because yes, I could send a message, but it would just be some Google Translate thing and be a broken grammar and sentencing. So that would make a poorer impression than if we had a native speaker willing to, help reach out for us. I could also maybe use help with making a contract template, because I've never bought an ad before from anyone. So just having like a rough one that says like, hey, we're looking to maybe just send this message. It'll be like at this length. It wouldn't have to have like lots of nefarious stuff, but we want something that's a little. The vast majority of my business stuff is all just an email saying, oh, are you good with this? I'll pay you this. And the other person saying, sure. But if we're asking random people, we might need something a little more enforceable, I guess. To help write a contract. Oh, also, if you have experience in any of this, doesn't have to be in different languages, of just what sort of rates should we charge? I mean, we're going to ask the YouTubers who run channels, if they already have established rates, we'll ask about that, then see if that's affordable for us. But if not, for those that don't, we'll have to make an offer. So we want to make one that's kind of reasonable for the industry. Again, I have no idea on this. So, yeah, see, somebody's saying Ireland would be the only English one. I think there's another one, but the issue is people in Ireland are probably going to be consuming just English content in general. So it's kind of, even if we did reach out to like an Irish YouTuber, their videos might not get views in Ireland necessarily more than like America or Canada or the UK. So it would, again, it's about the numbers and it's about the eligible viewers, like the people who are eligible to sign. So yeah, you can contact me about any of that. My email, rosswscott@gmail.com. So we're going to pursue that and then see how the numbers look, because we can consider smaller ones, but we're generally looking for people who have tens of thousands of viewers or more. So if you have like 20, because if we could get like a dozen or two of those, because again, these real targeted ones of where a lot of the audience has never even heard of the initiative, that might be enough to close the gap. So I do not know how viable this is or not. Honestly, our biggest barrier will probably be just getting a reply from people in the first place, because the bounce rate, well, not necessarily bounce rate, but so much of outreach has been like talking into a black hole. You just send out these emails or messages and then just never hear anything. And I expect it'll be a little bit better if we're offering money or trying to get estimates, but we'll see. So that's kind of our last card to play that I think has a chance of getting us over the threshold. And I think I'll know within a couple weeks whether that's looking viable or not. Because all these other big promotions just fall through. We were really hoping for the GOG one, especially. I mean, it's rough that got axed. And the thing is, it wouldn't be such a letdown if they had just told us back in August or September, it's like, well, we'd love to help more, but our policy is that we can't have like non-commercial news in our newsletter. If they just told us that up front, it would have saved so much time and frustration on our end. But again, I don't assume malice. I think it's a situation of like the left hand not talking to the right at the company, that sort of thing. What? And I do have more interviews coming up. At this point, I don't want to. I don't want to necessarily say with who, just because in case things cancel, because I've already had enough experience saying, "Oh, this is going to happen," then it doesn't happen, and it's for reasons completely outside of my control. But I do have an interview this isn't like a public one. This is just an outreach thing. Next week with the European Federation of Game Archives, Museums and Preservation Projects in the EU. I'm not getting my hopes up too high because I think they'll be sympathetic to what we're doing. But since this is a numbers game, I'm not sure how many contacts and outreach they'll be able to bring in. But maybe we'll get lucky. As usual, I'm typically saying yes to just about every opportunity that comes our way to try to promote the European Citizens Initiative. So, what? So I'm saying, have you tried asking the few bigger YouTubers already on board like Louis Rossmann? Yeah, well, I've talked to Louis Rossmann a few times. We had discussion about the possibility of just having like a discussion on his channel or something like that. But he said that he couldn't really, the way I've said in the past, I don't know how he has time to do everything that he does. I think I understand a little more now, because he said that due to the way he operates, he can't really commit to saying something like, okay, we'll do it Thursday at 5, or we'll do it Saturday at 2, or something, because everything's just sort of like day to day for him, or hour to hour, that he's not really, what he told me was he wasn't really good at meaning that. So what I said was, well, if something does come up and I'm available at that time, I'll try to hop on, but it does make it difficult to coordinate things. But yeah, I was going to ask him again about that, if we could get the threshold higher, because at this point, I mean, I think any really big YouTubers could probably end this, could probably basically change gaming history at this point if they wanted to promote the initiative. But anything less than that, the English ones, I think they'll bring in some views, but not lots of views, because you're going to have the double problem of, one, the majority of their viewers won't be eligible to sign the initiative, and two, if it's in English, there's a higher probability they've already heard about the initiative. So let's say they were eligible and they already signed it. Well, they can't sign it twice. So that's why I feel like non-English speakers are the largest, non-English gaming communities are the largest untapped area. So, but yeah, I'm not saying no to people who are willing to talk about this, and I still am doing some reach out. So again, we'll probably have some interviews, some more promotions over the next few weeks, but I don't think anything I'm likely to talk about in the next few weeks will make or break it either way. I think our last hope on this is is the non-English coverage, or if we get divine intervention from a large YouTuber or something like that, which you can't really account for. So, okay, so yeah, that's it for the Stop Killing Games stuff. It's getting pretty close to wrapping up, except for those ad promotions that we're looking into. I mean, if we can't do it, we can't do it. It's certainly not for a lack of trying. I mean, God, I don't know how many hundreds of people I've tried to reach out to at this point. So it's just hell trying to get interest in this, or just getting replies is the hardest part. And then I guess sometimes you'll have big names that are interested in it, but they'll give relatively like small coverage. Like one that comes to mind is like Linus Tech Tips. He said on his podcast, he's totally in favor of this and we should go do it. But it was like the views on that. Okay, I forget. I want to say it was like 30 or 40,000. So it's not, whereas like a 15 to 30 second mention inside of a bigger video is way more effective. Actually, who is it? Mudahar from Some Ordinary Gamers gave like almost like a textbook perfect example of that sort of thing in one of his recent videos. Maybe I can have a link to that where he just mentioned it. He mentioned it briefly and he said that, yeah, if you're in the EU, this is a way of like getting back at the games industry. And just, it was like short and sweet and to the point. I was like, oh man, that was perfect. So, yeah, so I want to see how these, again, I'm not going to say no to any opportunities, and I want to see how these potential sponsored messages go. But if that fails, I can't see a path to victory at that point. So, I'll continue not saying no to opportunities, but at that point, I don't think it's going to make it for the Citizens Initiative. But okay, well, so that's the message there. That's kind of our last hope, unless people have better ideas. So I'll stop this here.